Hello, everybody. I'm Gwen Campbell-Mindes, and um, so you may be noticing the picture that I've got up front here. This is a painting of my mother. It's a painting from the 1970s. I recognize that horrible, horrible couch she fell asleep on. Um, and this was painted actually by an old boyfriend of hers. She had an affair with him. It was a complicated thing. The reason this particular picture is up, is because just a couple weeks ago, as of the time that I'm recording this, which means it's not going to be going up for a while, but as of mid-March, just so that you can all place when in time this goes, my mother passed away. And we had a very complex relationship. Um, Not just because everybody has a complicated relationship with their mothers, but because my mother suffered a massive psychological set of issues, psychiatric issues, really, because they were medical rather than purely mental. When I was in my teens, and the whole of that, along with the fact that she had multiple sclerosis and a great many other things, meant that our relationship was very, very skewed and not necessarily parental, and I spent a lot of time in a caretaker role. What this meant was that in a lot of ways, I didn't get to know her as an adult. Now, in a way, none of us ever gets to know our parents as an adult. There's the old tired truism that, you're always a child to your parents. But the thing is that there still comes a day when you're physically an adult and your parents are physically an adult, and you can talk to them about adult things and have an adult conversation. And that was not something that was so easy for me. And now my mother is gone. And it was remarkably sudden in a lot of ways. And I was talking to my father, and I thought, here's the thing. He's already had an influence on this channel because I asked him to give me a list of books that well-read, intelligent, English-speaking people should have read. The kinds of books that you put on your list because they are in some way improving, not necessarily because they're fun. And I didn't get to know my mother at the height of her mental powers. I didn't get to know the woman who had to school one of her own professors at university because the dope was analyzing literature with a copy of the Bible that did not exist at the time that that particular author was writing. That at the time that author was writing, he would have been using the King James Bible, and thus, if you are going to interpret literature, you should be interpreting it using the tools and materials that were available at the time, not something that was published later because someone got a bee in their bonnet about the accuracy of the translation. I'm not going to argue accuracy of translations of the Bible here. I'm just going to say that if you're going to interpret something that was written before, say, the New English Bible came out in the 1960s, maybe you shouldn't use the New English Bible as, your reference material for any biblical quotes a person might have been making. Um, I didn't get to know the woman who was able to talk herself to an A without ever writing an essay or writing a test. That she was doing an individual single person project. She met with the professor who was supposed to be sort of administering things and grading her. She did research, wrote notes, and talked to the woman a lot. And the woman, before she left, said, here, based on the work that she's done, she deserves an A. That was how good my mother was, and it's a woman that I never knew and never will know. So I thought I would ask my father, who after all did know that woman. He married that woman. if he could give me a list of books that were hers, that were her favorites, that were books, maybe he didn't like them that much. He doesn't think all that much of Lawrence Durrell, but my mother loved him, so he's on this list. And they were books that she liked, books that she enjoyed, not books that are improving, not books that you look at and you say, well, this should be on my list because it will make me a better person or a more intelligent person to read. Several of these books are books that you read because they tell a story. For the same reason that you watch Star Trek, or you watch a sitcom, or you watch any number of other shows because they're fun to watch. And that's what I've got here, is a list of those books. And so in a couple of weeks, I will start posting these books. I'm starting to work through them now. I've actually finished the first book, and I will record a video for it, and it will go up in due course. But I wanted to give this series its proper introduction because you may have noticed I've already been talking for 6.5 minutes, and that would cut into any time that I spent on the actual book, and I didn't want to limit myself. Because I don't know what I'm going to be saying about any of these books. I never know what I'm going to be saying in any of these videos. If anyone wants to know why there are so many pauses, it's because I freewheel them and don't edit anything, because I don't know how to edit videos, and I'd rather not try my hand at doing that. In any event, the painting, by the way, was done by that old boyfriend of my mother's, whose first name was Vladimir, and my father has no idea what his surname was. But Mom was lying down on the couch modeling for him, and she fell asleep, and he just apparently kept on painting. So that's my mother sleeping in the 1970s. Anyway, so if anybody was wondering about that. In any event, I figured this was going to be sort of the cover, my title card for this series. And I talked to my father, who came up with a title which is simple and easy and not what I would have come up with, because, let's be honest, In Memoriam is unnecessarily grim. So it's going to just be Mom's Favorites, Books My Mother Loved. And that's what I'll be talking about. Now, I may not love these books. I don't know whether or not I'll love these books. My mother and I didn't see eye to eye on a lot of things from an aesthetic angle. That was just a matter of our respective personal tastes clashing, so it may well be that I don't like a lot of these books. But this has to do with remembering my mother in a way that is significant to who she was. Because, like my father, like myself, like my paternal grandparents, like a lot of people in my family, she loved reading. And she loved audiobooks when she stopped being able to read and stopped being able to pick up a book because her eyes weren't working properly. She loved audiobooks because it gave that back to her. So the best way, one of the ways for me to remember my mother in this particular case is to read the books that she read, to follow in those footsteps. And again, I'm not going to look at the books themselves as a kind of elegy to her, because the books aren't. Whatever my opinions are, those will be the opinions that happen in the course of the video. But this is my work of elegy for my mother. Talking about books and talking about books that she thought were good books, books that she thought were enjoyable, books that she thought were worth reading, whether because she thought they were well written or because she thought that they were just fun. And my mother did, at one point in her life, read a fair number of Harlequin romances because she liked, when she had been studying very, very hard, to turn her brain off and read something that you knew every step of the way was going to go in a particular way. Um, she was very much like that. As a matter of switching the brain off. So that's what this will be. Is it will be books that she loved, whether they are plays or novels or anything else. Um, so now that I have gone on endlessly for the last 11 odd minutes, I think I'm going to wrap this up. And not next week, but in a couple weeks, I will be putting up the first in this series. And I think that is everything. So I guess I will see you all next week.